And we're
And
live.
we're live. We are back with another Quantum Kirk. We are coming at you with Quantum Kirk's Fast and Furious. We want to have each of the producer candidates on to review their favorite Kirk Minahan episode. So Michael Montante was on earlier this week, so Menners will be releasing that. This is being recorded on Thursday night, the day after I went in studio and Danny bailed because of a fake COVID thing. Okay, he
There's
didn't
no
want to
fake.
get
I'm
he
actually
didn't want to
dead.
get he didn't want to get yelled at by Kirk. And the night before, Andrew Augustus makes his return, probably his last go around, like Mike's was, before the Kirk picks a producer. So Andrew, welcome. Thanks for taking time out to do this before you go in tomorrow morning, man. I know you just got back from your wedding, and we want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. When Danny reached out and brought up the episode idea, we were going through a bunch, and then when he said the magical name of Scott Spears, I just kind of more from behind what happened after Scott was on the show is really where everything took off.
All right, awesome. So I'm glad that you can tell you're excited about this. So this is a favorite of yours. I'm not sure the one that we did with Montante is like a Montante favorite. I think he just picked a random one out of the hat. I don't think Mike really
Because he
remembers
doesn't
any.
re-listen. So
He
you had to
doesn't.
pick
No,
something.
he doesn't re-listen. And I don't think he remembers. Like once they're gone out of his brain, like that's it. Montante, like once it's gone. Like he doesn't retain things, you know. So it's good to have someone on here who's like excited to listen. Now, I am going to say this to the Quantum Kirk listeners: we are breaking a rule. Andrew's breaking a rule. We had said we were only going to review things from the Steve Robinson era, that we didn't want to go into the Dave Cullinane, but we're letting it slide because Andrew's coming on late night, and this is very, very early in the Dave Cullinane era. I want to say one of his first, like probably 3 or 4 episodes that he did.
First couple weeks, and it's blatantly obvious, I think, too.
Yeah, it's blatantly obvious. We'll get into it, but I do want the listeners to know that we are breaking a rule. So, but that's okay. Andrew's doing us a favor, so we're going to break the rule tonight. Okay. Let's kick it off. Danny, we always go to you. What is the name and the date of this episode?
So the official name here is a long one. It's Journalism 101 with WWGH's Scott Spears.
Okay, as Andrew alluded to. And do you have the date there, Danny, too? I always like to let people know the
That'll
date.
be August 18th, 2021. So
August 18th.
A little over 2 years ago.
2 years ago. So this is kind of I re-listening, Andrew, it brought back a lot of memories. Okay. It brought back a lot, probably for you too, Andrew. We'll get into it, but it brought back a lot of memories because I want to say me and you were in studio maybe the week before this, because this was Kirk was pitching. This was all about the pre-show. Kirk was going to have, his favorite, whoever had podcast offshoots. I think Andrew was on Kirk and Off at the time. I had Talking Loud Saying Nothing. Mick was in there. That's when Mick did the whole, he said yes yesterday. He said yes yesterday. The famous,
that's right.
That Mick was in studio, right, Andrew?
Yeah,
Mick was in studio with us. Yep.
The funniest thing about that whole thing is Kirk said at the very beginning he just wanted something that people can tune out, and the fact that he completely forgot that I was even there until the very end of the show. I'm like,
that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, Buddy and BMD were too pussy to go in studio, so they said fucking poor Andrew in there, and then they forgot Andrew was. Yeah, but it's funny now, right? We've come full circle, Andrew, in that you and Mick are now like trying out for producer. You're in the final 4 or 5, let's say. I'm not counting Josh. I think Josh has no chance. I think it's Andrew, it's Mick, it's Montante, it's Coleman. And actually, John from Scranton, from what I'm hearing today, had a good episode. So John could be coming in late. So, but either way, 2 of the top 5 producers that might get this job, Danny, were in studio the week before trying to get on the pre-show for the Sacco show that was coming up.
We wanted to go be at Sacco, and flash forward 2 years later, we're all trying to do it all again on a different
do it all again at Sacco. So Andrew, this is actually a fucking, like, listening to it, I was like, okay, we're breaking the rule, but this is like a good, like a timestamp sort of episode on where we are in the world. So that's happening the week before. Let's actually get into this episode. It starts off with Dave is very new. You can tell, Danny, as you said, Kirk is making fun of him for being friends with Minifans. Kirk is like shitting on him for, go ahead, defend this guy. Don't defend this guy. Oh, I know you text with these fucking guys all day, and then now 2 years later, Dave doesn't want anything to do with anybody. As as Kirk broke Steve Robinson, he's broken Dave here at the end. And you see Dave in the beginning, this is all full of piss and vinegar. And, wanting to please everybody. What jumped out at me from the beginning is Justin quits, right? Justin goes away from mental time, I think is what Kirk called it. They discuss whether Justin would go to Sacco and come, and as we know happened, boys, he did not go to Sacco. And then that is the Sacco show where what happens, Danny, at that Sacco show? Danny, are you frozen? Do you know?
He might be frozen.
Danny, are you frozen? Your fucking internet sucks, Danny. All right, Andrew, what happens at that Sacco show?
29K.
29K. Yep, Danny's out. He'll be back. That's all right. We'll just keep powering through.
But
So
it's funny
20
that you mentioned this because one of the, as you said, with Justin taking his mental health, I think this is one of the first instances of a pure Davism we get right off the bat when he talks about what might have led to it with him. They were just getting back on YouTube.
Go ahead, the comments.
They were going through all the comments, and Justin wasn't taking it. And of course, Dave Cullinane does not just. It's a Dave Cullinane line right here.
So I brought up a point, and I don't like to place blame on anything, so this is not what I'm doing. But he monitors that YouTube chat the whole show, and they just fucking
here comes Dave turning on his people.
I'm not, but they just.
I'm saying multiple point blame. That's exactly what you're doing. Probably their fault. There's blood on their hands.
I look like at the end too. There's blood on it.
Yeah. So Dave says something, takes it back right away, and then says it again. Yes, it's Andrew, great clip. That is a Dave-ism to full effect. Danny, get back on here. Where the fuck are you? It shouldn't take you this long. But yeah, so he goes through it, Andrew. They talk about Justin. They talk about reasons of why he had left the mental time. Now, what's going on in the world too is Julie DeCaro is suing the Kirk Minihane show as well too. So they speculate on that, whether that's the reasons that he took time off. We never end up finding out, but they do bring up a line where they go, "Do you think Justin will go to Sacco?" And it's funny to hear them say that, knowing what we know, that he did not go to Sacco. He did wasn't he supposed to make a video, Andrew? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, he was supposed to make a video for it. And even I think the other funny part is Dave sounded so confident that Justin would go to Sacco.
Would go to Sacco, yeah, right. Danny, are you okay catching up there? Do you hear us?
No, I just missed the last like 30 seconds. They kept recording though, hopefully.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, kept recording. Yeah, we're good. Cool. So just jump back in. We're talking about.
I just switched to my personal hotspot, so.
Okay.
Comcast.
So your internet sucks. So we were talking about Dave, like doing a Daveism, defending Justin, saying that maybe the YouTube commenters is what drove him to mental time, and then basically Julie DeCaro was suing them at the time, so they speculate whether that was what was getting to him, whether he was actually worried about being sued, and then. Yeah, just we hear them say that, Dave is so confident that Justin would show up to Sacco, and me and Andrew were just discussing. Obviously, he didn't, and I think he was supposed to make a Kirk. I think that's probably the most mad I think Kirk's ever been at Justin. If you guys remember that time, was him bailing on the show and not even making like a video. Do you remember that era? Am I remembering that correctly?
Danny?
Go. Danny? Wait, yeah. I was going to defer to our guest first, actually.
He
already did all this. Oh, okay.
Yes, So we're getting you that caught up, Danny.
So basically, the last 3 minutes are the best in Quantum Kirk history, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I wouldn't say the best.
Yeah. No, Kirk was not happy, and well, you could tell Cullinane wasn't happy either. He's like, I've made 4 videos, and and I don't want to make a 5th one. He's offering to secure a sketch artist instead of having to do a 5th video.
That's right.
His little recap of his parody of Quantum Week was actually laugh out loud funny. One of the best bits that I've forgotten. It's not like a Steve My Good Man that's gone down in history and you hear a lot, but that little back and forth. Do you happen to have that, Andrew?
I don't have that one, but it's one of the things I always stuck out to me in this scenario with Dave and Justin. It's the confidence, and you can kind of feel at the very early on stages, and it brought me back to this producer search to the point where you were hearing them saying, "Oh, you just kind of got to go for it. You got to put yourself out there. You can't read the comments," because they were even talking about that on the show today. You can't read the comments, or it's going to eat you alive. Like even what was it? I think it was Monday's episode. They brought it up with Coleman too, when he was like liking everything. I mean, I just like if someone mentions me and say I suck, I still like it because it's funny. If they get a good joke, I got to give them props for it. So like even even Johnny Carson's gave me a good laugh on the plane yesterday. So I was like, kudos to them.
And to get into that, I will say this, like, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Andrew on air, but Andrew does take it in stride. We bust each other's balls, but when we see each other, it's always, hey, what's up? How's it going? Let's have a drink. Let's have a beer. Like, Andrew does take it well. So when people say, like, what's the mental strength? Is that Mike's category? I'll say Andrew's mental strength, it'll be hard to break Andrew. Now, eventually he will be broken. Andrew, if he gets the job full time, will break. They all do. Montante will break sooner. I'll say that. But I got to give Andrew credit with that. Like, as much as, like, I mean, literally, he started a chat after I called him in the holy trinity of boring. These guys all went and started a chat, naming the chat that. I mean, that's actually really funny. When I found that out, Andrew, when you said that on the show, I will say you made me laugh quite a bit. Like, I was kind of proud of myself, to be totally honest with you. I was like, oh, that's great, you know?
So the one thing I'll always say about this show too, it's one of those things that I'm lucky enough, I've just been able to be me with all my flaws and all what I am. People either like me, hate me, find me annoying. I'm everything.
Yeah. No, it's very true. So, you brought up a good point. You can't read the comments. You can't, like, and I feel like Justin at that time probably was. Danny, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's very apparent for Andrew. I've always said, you know, he's the type, he knows how to deal with a bully, right? Somebody makes fun of you, you know, he punches you in the face, you smile at them, compliment their shoes. They don't know what to do. You know, they just get confused. You're just yourself. You're going along being your happy self. And I think, you know, Andrew will kind of rise above in that manner. You know, will there eventually be a downfall? You know, maybe not. Now, I will say this ties in nicely, though, because if you notice, Blind Mike actually predicts Cullinane's downfall pretty early in this episode.
He does. Hey, good call, Danny.
He's going down, and it's going to be in a ball of flame, basically.
He said a ball of flames, but I don't think it was the fans that eventually brought Dave down. It was Kirk. Like, it was Kirk. Like, it wasn't Dave. The fans never really broke Dave. Like, even, you know, a fire, Cullinane at the chant, that doesn't break him. It was Kirk finally being like, you know, that screen was, you know, I can't have this. Like, I just can't have this, you know?
That is the case. But what was really interesting to me is because this is so early in Dave's tenure, number one, they were doing that rundown. So, you know, Kirk was doing the what's next that we kind of come back to once in a while. And B, you can see early on, he's trying to defend the hell out of Madawaska Rob.
We're going to get into that.
Saying ridiculous shit about, the show should be providing dunk tanks. Yeah. I mean, he's going to bat for him left and right. And, you know, he gets away from this over time. He defended me the other day very briefly, but, you know, it doesn't happen very often, at least not like it used to.
So good segue. So we'll get into that's the next part of the show. They stop talking about Justin. They play the Madawaska Rob sound, who, by the way, Andrew, another guy that was in there with us. The day that he was named director of fun, Danny, was that day during the podcast pre-show tryouts. Kirk named him the director of fun.
We're gonna have to go back and we're gonna have to review that one. Like, see if we can get everybody on. Wasn't Montante in that day too?
No. Montante was not in the world really that much then. He was not like a name. I don't even know if he had started Montante's World yet, to be totally honest with you. He had just started Montante's World. He wasn't like a big fixture. Like, it was, you know, like I said, I still had Talking Loud Saying Nothing at the time. The Kirk and Off guys were probably the biggest recap show, you know, between them and I think Menners was still doing something, but I would probably say Kirk and Off was the biggest, like, names of, like, you know, who Kirk would mention as far as, like, when he would talk about, you know, recap shows. So no, it was Mick, it was me, it was Andrew Augustus, it was Madawaska Rob, it was an old guy. I forget what the fuck.
I don't know his name, but it was like I was gonna say there was this. I felt like a random old guy in there.
There's a random old guy in there. Justin was like security, and then the dude, Lemon Hayes or Eric, I think his name, came in trying to give weed to Cullinane and like got kicked out, and Justin was like gonna fight him. There's a whole thing in the green room. It was a whole thing.
And Madawaska Rob ended up taking the weed.
And Madawaska Rob ended up taking the weed. Yes. Shout out Madawaska Rob. But by the way, a really nice guy. But that's the day he was named director of fun. So it's funny to hear this episode, Andrew. Good call on it. And Kirk goes off. I'm sure you have you guys pulled some clips of this. Do you want to play it?
Yeah, I mean, like, let's for right here. This is I think it's funny listening to this where the show is now and where it was 2 years ago.
Where Kirk hated the fans,
Kirk.
yeah. Yeah.
The show, and I hate these people.
Stop, you don't.
I hate
He
you.
has. He's made that.
I
Clear.
hate
He's
these
made that clear.
people. I hate them. I hate them. I give anything to have Steve back. Anything. Fucking show. I hate it. Oh God, I hate this fucking show. I run away from advertising opportunities. I do whatever I can. How many times I just took the show off YouTube? What else do I have to do? I don't want to do this.
So what do you want? You want something to happen to get you canceled or something? Like what's your end result here?
I'll just keep doing it till one day I don't do it anymore.
So yeah, Andrew, that's a great poll because I literally wrote down and circled. I'd give anything to have Steve back. I wrote that down, starred it, underlined it, circled it. He probably still feels that way. If we were to give him truth serum, he probably still feels that way right now. But he doesn't hate the fans. He was really having a hard time with the fans at this moment. I think this is like a lot of that's when the sneakers and those guys were at their worst, I think. And Rob knows I love him. Relax, Rob, just because I say this. Don't fucking go crazy. All right, Sneaks, chill out. But at that time, it was a big, there were really wars in there. I don't think he liked any of the YouTube content. He wasn't a fan of. He didn't like really anything. He didn't like the fans. He was running away from advertisers. Where now he's trying to do pay-per-views. He's trying to do more live shows. Like he's reinvigorated. I think it's a good poll, Andrew, saying it's that you hear the tone and the difference 2 years later. Danny, you want to jump in?
Yeah, no, he's definitely down on the world right now, and he brings up all this, and the episode we're actually going to potentially do with Beyond Average Mick, if we can get a time set with him, is very similar and in a pretty similar time frame, a little bit earlier than this. But we've been hearing that tone for a while, and at least there's some jokingness to this. I think he's jovial about it because he's joking around a little bit with Colleen, and that was the thing about it, especially early in the Colleen era. You brought up the YouTube, and I thought that was interesting because I still remember Dave's first show. It was live on YouTube, and people were going nuts.
Yep.
You had the link tree, you had new merch. It was like, this is the new era of the Kirk Minahan show. And 2 weeks in, Dave's already getting punched in the dick.
Yep.
Yep. It's like
no more play the hits.
Dave, you're
no
too
more
close
play the
to
hits.
the fans. Like,
fans. Yep.
What the fuck? No more fun. Get rid of fun. Yep. No fun. No fucking dunk tanks and donkeys and whatever the fuck you guys are gonna do in Saco. Get it out of here. It should be the show that should be miserable. I want Steve back. I want to talk about shitty politics and all this other crap that nobody cares about. Yeah. So this is just, you look at the young spunky Dave Cullinane, where the world is his oyster, and it goes downhill.
Yeah. So do you have any of him shitting on Rob? Like, did you guys pull that sound? I'm sorry, I was at work, so I couldn't send you guys any clips.
Of course, it should be something that works for the show.
Yeah, but he should have no burden to do that, though.
That's all on the show.
Go back a little further. Yeah.
Oh, was Mike ripping 2 tours before?
Oh, that's 2 tours.
No, a little before that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know because he even calls them an idiot.
Yeah, so if we don't have it, that's fine. I'll lay it out for people. He just goes in on poor Madawaska Rob. He wishes testicular cancer on him. He says he does like his mother, but basically Rob is like, why are we doing all of this? Why are me and Tim Riddle spending money, $1,000 to get dunk tanks and do all this? Why isn't the show doing it? And then Kirk fucking lost it. First of all, Kirk's like, why are you spending $1,000? No one told you to do that, you fucking dummy. And, and why would the show do that? Like, why? He just was flabbergasted at 40-year-old men. He goes, the average age of everyone there is 40 years old. You're going to be jumping around in a fucking bouncy house? Or you just go, you have a couple beers, you listen to the show, or don't listen to the show, I think is what he said. I don't give a fuck. So it's he goes in on Rob. If anyone, I would encourage to re-listen to this. This is a very fun episode to listen to, especially if you like Kirk Minahan yelling at the fans.
I was going to say it's a good one. Big classic Kirk freak out and yelling at Rob. It is.
Yes.
Yeah. Top of his voice just laying in.
Shithead.
Yeah. Which I think someone said today. Mandy Mayo wants to steal shithead from him.
Well, so Mayo's like, I've learned all these words from you, like shithead. It's like, what? Fucking Mayo didn't know the word shithead before?
Yeah, Mayo is a weird man. But anyway, so that's a good pull right there. That he goes into that, and then he also, and then did you guys catch this? It's Dave and Mike knowing that Rob is going through something in his personal life and wasn't even going to be able to go to Saco anymore. So they're trying to hey, maybe relax. And Kirk just doesn't give a fuck. He just doesn't give a fuck. He plows right through. Is that what you guys caught there?
Yeah, and in those instances, like it's I get what Dave and Mike are trying to do, but it's like you're gonna make it worse 10 out of 10 times.
Yep.
And that's why, like, even with me in Mexico, after my my fuck ups, there's a reason why I focused until the wedding was done and complete, and then little sprinkles to show I'm still around, listening, paying attention. But it's what there's no winning in that situation. Trying to like, you can't beat yourself out of it. You can't talk Kirk out of it when he's going on his thing. You got to let it go. It's just going to keep rolling and going on. And you just heard it. And it's just, I mean, from the listener standpoint, amazing content. I was cracking up this afternoon listening to it.
Yeah, agreed. Danny?
Yeah, I did feel a little bad for Rob even now listening back to it.
Agreed. Because by the way, Madawaska Rob is a great fucking Minifan, a great guy. I want to put that out there. Him and Tim Ringles, two of the best.
He was one of my favorite people to meet in Portland. Absolutely, yeah, great. Great dude, and listening back now, knowing a little bit more of the background, I did feel bad for him because he must have felt like shit listening to that episode. But and it was a really stupid thing to say to be like, oh, the show should be providing this stuff. Like, all right, the show maybe the show should provide a venue, maybe some food trucks or something like that, and then that's about it. Mean, sound equipment, maybe some screens that people could actually see. So
we got free food that day. Yeah, they provided food. We got free food that day, Danny.
That's
so
right.
They definitely hooked it up. Yeah. So I think if Kirk,
you really need a fucking mechanical bull to have a good time.
No, hold on. I think if Kirk go back, he'd pay the $1,000 for the bouncy house instead of the $29K for the fucking spare ribs and hot dogs that he gave away. You know what I mean? If Kirk could go back in time, he'd gladly play for that bouncy
balloon
house.
Animal clown and whatever else.
Yeah. The patriarch,
cotton candy guy.
All right, before we move on to the next segment, any of you guys have any more thoughts on this part at all?
It was, again, one of my favorite things, like, especially when I have the time to go back and listen to like the ones from the 2020s and 2021s. It's such a different vibe at first because Dave's trying to be aggressive, but he's also timid and he just keeps making the same fumbling again. But like you can tell where it is. I think it makes me appreciate the show more now, because it seems like there's a lot more fun being had on Kirk. Like Kirk's enjoying this. He said it over and over again. That pop he got at Plymouth is something that really pushed him to sign this new contract. He said, and like it was overwhelming. So it's nice to listen to these older ones. It's like a good nostalgia feel, and it's also a good contrast of, all right, this is where we were, but this is where we're going now, type of thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. Listening to these, Andrew, I get that same sort of feeling. Especially we listen to mostly the Steve Robinson era, where some of them were like a lot more like serious and thoughtful, and Kirk was going at it with Murchison. He was still a lot angrier than he is now. Like you heard him today, he's like, Murchison's whatever, these guys are whatever. Even like the enemies, even the people that shit on him online, he doesn't really care anymore. Where you re-listening, like Danny said, the one that we're gonna do with Mick, I mean, he's ready to dox people. It's almost Doxapalooza on that episode. The one that we're gonna do with Mick. So
was this around the time that phone call happened too, where he had that where everyone could call in, and that's where like the sneaks and him really took the head to it? Wasn't this around this time, or was that a little bit later? I'm trying to remember the time frame.
I don't want to say yes or no on that, but I will say that you're right though. Your overall theme is that, listening back at this time, I just think that he still thought he was in a war with Murchison and war with everybody, and now it's not as much of a war. So I get your point on the general vibe, Danny.
Yeah, no, there's definitely that. I think that is a close proximity of that, Andrew. And, I think, again, that is one thing I think about the transition to Colin is it did bring out some more playfulness in Kirk. That was, it's always been there. We've always seen it here and there. But I think, like you said, with a lot of some of the darker times, hopefully now it is nice to know, I think to Andrew's point, looking back 2 years later, we can enjoy this that much more, knowing that the show is continuing on and now things are in a good place. Because there was always that chance that every episode was the last. There was a period of time there, especially when you had the 20-minute show and the 8-minute show, things like that, when it's like, all right, there's a chance this thing is over. And of course, that was the biggest nightmare for any Minifan. So the fact we know looking back and we can look at it with some historical perspective, I think that adds a little bit more joy going back and listening to this. And not that he was at that level in this particular episode, but there certainly were times in that era.
A great point, Danny. That's I think you kind of verbalized what I was thinking more. You did even better than me, so thank you. I do want to go to the next segment, guys, which is probably, I think, Andrew, your favorite part. I think this is why you picked the show. So I'm gonna like kind of let you take the lead here. Play clips, breakdown. I want you to go with it. I am gonna say, Andrew, I forgot about this guy, so I will thank you for having me re-listen. I say this all the time, like. You remember names, but you forget actually what was in it. And I can't believe the way this guy interviewed Bill Cosby. So if anyone hasn't listened to this episode, go back and listen. It's a quick hour and 40 minutes. It's actually a really nice listen. Andrew, go ahead, man. Go, Scott Spears. This is all yours, Andrew.
I mean, even before we meet Scott, it already starts off with a familiar name coming right off the bat.
Music. That music.
Historic Marion, Ohio, it's Now with Scott Spears.
Who's that?
On WWGH 107.1 FM. Call Scott live on the air anytime at 740-38.
Mike, you know what that is, right?
I think he says his name though coming up.
9944. No topic is too big.
Why do I know that voice?
You do.
I'm your announcer, the man with the golden voice, Ted Williams. Here's your host,
I couldn't believe it.
Spears.
Just such a strong start. You get the homeless guy turned back, relapsing.
Yep.
Right off the bat, and it's just Mike and Kirk already. Just here we go.
Here we go.
And it's as working in radio, it's like such the stereotypical beginning. I mean, John Dion has a very similar introduction with like the music in the background. He plays the Pledge of Allegiance every show. It's just typical AM radio, and it's AM radio at its finest.
Hold on, but we find out that this ended up being an FM fucking station. That blew my mind.
Yeah.
That blew my mind, Andrew. You're right. Yeah. You would think it's AM. They even say this, I'm sorry to interrupt, but they say it at the end. They imply, like, no way, that's fucking FM. Like, that signal is FM? Yeah. So, yeah, good point, though. I get what you're saying, but it's an FM station.
It's FM, and it's the internet stream of an FM station, and it still sounds like a transistor radio. It's awesome.
All right, Andrew, continue on. What do you got? Scott Spears, break it down for the people, Andrew. This is you.
So Scott Spears is the man in the country to get one of the most, I would say, sought after interviews after Cosby got released from prison. And there's only one way that Scott knew how to describe him.
Here's your host.
Spears along with you here on this Getaway Friday, August the 13th, 2021. And I've been promising it all morning. It is Friday the 13th, and we would have a guest on at 10:15 a.m. live that has not been on this program before. Now, let me give you a little background because I want to get to this person as quick as possible. We have had so many great guests in my career in broadcasting.
Go ahead.
We've had Phyllis Diller, Maya Angelou, Dick Gregory,
Nice.
Tony Curtis, Ernest Borgnine, Robert Culp, Art Linkletter. So many great.
None of them has raped as many women as Bill Cosby.
We might top all of those, because our guest today on this Friday the 13th, to help us celebrate 7 years on the air here, 19 years in broadcasting, he is a teacher, he is an educator,
True.
and probably the most famous stand-up comic, actor, television star of our time.
I mean,
Pride and privilege.
That's true.
He's all
Who'd have
those
thought it?
things.
Well, yeah.
So right there alone
I mean,
is he wants to be quick. That
but
started
it takes
45 seconds right there enough, and he's not done yet. I have to skip a little bit of them talking because then all of a sudden here he comes.
These words, our guest, Mr. Bill Cosby. Mr. Cosby.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
I can't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I thought that like it was going to be a guy impersonating. Like I couldn't believe it. Andrew, because you brought it back. Like I was like, I remember first listening, going like, "There's no way it's Bill Cosby. There's no fuck." Because Mike gave it away.
Yeah.
Mike stepped on the
Baba
whole thing.
Booey something.
Yeah. I bet you Kirk was like pissed, but Mike stepped on it. So I thought it was going to be like a fake Bill. I was like, couldn't believe it was Bill Cosby. You know what it reminded me of, guys? I was like, did someone take Mike's fucking idea of like having these guys on and then just never asking them about like what was that? What was the podcast they would always say that Mike like, oh, what are you up to now or some shit like that? Like, or what's next? Or I forget. Someone out there will know the name, but you guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, that was Mike, Steve, and Kirk, because that's when Mike started defending everyone. Louis C.K.
Everyone, exactly. Yeah. Bill Cosby probably defended Bill Cosby. So Kirk had the idea. You should have these guys on. Yeah, you should have these guys on and just like pretend like it never happened. And they had a name for the fucking podcast. I can't remember what it is now. It was a good one too.
I'll call Tim after this. He'll get it for us.
There you go. Tim will get it first. But yeah, go ahead, Andrew. Continue. That's all I thought there.
I mean, you set it up perfectly. It was that. I think that was the first genuine question because they talk about if this thing is real or not.
Like to the question,
right?
So I mean, it could the idea that somebody calling in and like fucking with him doesn't work.
Oh no, there's no way it's that.
And they're not going to pretend that it's built. Like I don't think the show does that.
No,
right?
I can't imagine.
But there were I read news stories about this.
Yeah, but not a lot.
No, I know.
Because I mean, it's Wednesday. We just found out about it yesterday.
True.
Oh, and then it just goes more hard-hitting questions from Scott.
Seconds I gave you to get to
49.
39.
49.
40. I just got in.
Get the wax out of your ears.
Yes. Here's what I was thinking. And many of your listeners might call in and give their opinion.
Bitches will drink anything you hand them, won't they?
I mean, it's a
good
great
one, Mike.
line. It's a great Mike line.
That's a great Mike line. All right, Danny. Oh, sorry, Andrew. You have more. I'm sorry.
This is more Bill talking.
Okay.
To go whatever amount of time. Because of the pandemic, what I kept thinking while watching.
Where were you, Bill, during this whole thing?
Did you find any shelter during that?
Just having them react to the seriousness of it is something was very funny, and it's listening it to again and having that kind of reaction of Kirk and Mike jumping in and giving the commentary just made it that much better to listen to because and after listening and even we'll get into it I'm sure in a little bit after listening to this and us calling in from Massachusetts into Scott, he's like taking this very seriously. He is a very straight-laced, your typical news guy, and he was not ready for it. And I think where things come to head is when Kirk's like, you know what, this guy's on the air. Let's give him a call.
Yeah.
Well, there's a moment where he does point out that he might know.
Yeah, that's the very last moment of the show.
Right. I've read interviews with this. Hold on.
In the second half. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, is this Scott?
Yeah.
Scott, this is Kirk Minahan, the Kirk Minahan Show at Barstool. How are you? Live to tape.
Good.
Scott, let me ask you a question from me to you. Like, could you have been, you had Cosby on. Like, do we bring up the rapes at any point, or did I miss it?
Hello,
Scott.
Then there's the hang up.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
I'll say this though, to Scott's credit, it doesn't take much because
you try different.
I just want to let the caller know we are on the air here. You can say whatever you want as long as it's in the FCC guidelines. But I wasn't sure if you knew we were on the air. So go ahead.
Oh, Scott, is it me again?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So, Scott, first of all, great interview because I was curious. The one thing I was wondering during the Olympics, I watched a lot of it, was what does Bill Cosby think about it? So thank you for getting the answer to that. Secondly, you have the most prolific rapist in the history of America, and you don't ask him a question about that? I'm not Dr. Journalism here, okay? No PhD, my friend. But, like, what are you thinking?
A very fair question by Kirk.
Very fair.
And I mean, honestly, he sounds like some of the producers in the room because Scott's response is great.
Now, are you on the air?
Yeah, live to tape. I said, yeah, we're good. We're live to go. We're good to go.
Okay. Now, what radio station are you with?
I'm with Barstool.
What's the podcast?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Give me the question again.
He needs the question again. And then Kirk, in typical Kirk fashion, just lays it out nice and slow for good old Scott. And he has I would say he's got a pretty interesting justification for it.
No, I think what you're referring to, and I think I said this to the newspapers when I spoke to them, was that I knew he was not going to answer questions about that. That he is involved in civil lawsuits. I believe there was a big story about that last week, which he plans to plead the fifth in these civil lawsuits, I do believe.
Well, Scott, I'm sorry to apologize.
And
Scott.
that he had no intention to answer any of those questions. So it was either put Bill Cosby on.
Yeah, but why put him on at all then? Like, let me ask you a question, Scott. Let me ask you a question. Just broadcasting. Yes, but 1 second. Do you think that Cosby committed these acts? Yes or no?
Do I think he did? I think as a journalist, I should not judge anybody or tell anybody.
Oh my God, man!
It's like
so hold on. So it's funny. Like you probably don't have this clip, and then I want to kick it to Danny because Manners is going to yell at us for not letting Danny talk. So I do want to say this. I would love for Kirk to go back because Scott says, Andrew and Danny, and quote me if I'm wrong. Scott says, if when the civil lawsuit's clear, I want to have him back on, and I will ask him about all of these things. I will wait. I want to blah blah. So I would love for Kirk or any of these. Andrew, I'm surprised maybe you should have reached out to Scott. This might have been a good move for you to just kind. Who says you didn't? Andrew, I like it, Andrew. All right, and find out if
this is going to come out after your appearance tomorrow. So
I don't have it
when you're watching this, you'll know what actually happened.
I don't have it for. I'll spoil it. I don't have it for tomorrow, but I'm starting to call back to get into the report with us, as he so lovingly calls
the
us.
good graces.
Yeah. So Danny, go ahead. I mean, you haven't spoken in a while, and Menners will. He's gonna write down. Danny hasn't spoken in 6 minutes or whatever. So go ahead.
That's all right. I appreciate Menners, going to bat for you. That's all right. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. I'm just here to support. I think so. If the ups and downs of that whole progression, because as soon as you hear Scott Spears hang up on the first call, well, the fact that he picks up on like the second ring and it's him. There's no screening. There's no producer. It's just him and the freaking
phenomenal.
Him and Ted Williams. Who's in the corner blowing lines with the golden voice. And you got. It's got Scott Spears just hello, WWGN, you're on the air. And, Kirk just goes right into it. Hey, starts talking about rape. As soon as you hear a click, you're like, all right, no way this is going anywhere.
Yep.
The fact that Kirk calls back and then
calls back and
this is why we don't let Danny talk because of his internet. This is why, Menners. All right, so Danny, how's it going there, buddy?
Oh my!
All right.
Oh God, I hate my fucking internet. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
What we've always said about Scott Spears is he's willing to have the conversation. Like this is a guy that will. So, spoiler alert, because I think we're gonna have to do a part 2. I already talked to Andrew about this because there's the episodes after this when Minifans start calling in, and then they have his regular listeners calling in to complain about Minifans calling in. I called in the day after this, and I think he had me on the line for almost a half hour. And we were just talking. I think Andrew might have actually recorded my call. I don't even think I want to go back and listen to it.
Crying, laughing. Between you and Tim, the one thing, especially when Tim calls people, when Tim does a prank phone call, he can cut that thing down to 30, 45 seconds quick in and out. He's cutting that down from at least 5, 6, 7 minutes every single time. He just gets these guys talking over and over and over. And to Scott's credit, out of everyone at the time when all these prank phone calls were starting, Scott handled it the best. You have to give him that credit by far.
By far, yeah. And that's a whole nother topic because he breaks it down. I mean, I was talking to him about Toyota, Nissan Altimas and bologna sandwiches and what I had for breakfast. I mean, there's just ridiculous calls that happen over the next couple of weeks. The popcorn festival in Marion, Ohio. I mean, it just gets nuts. I tried to get a statue built of him. I tried to get a statue of Kirk in Marion, Ohio.
No wonder your fucking wife doesn't let you go away for a fucking hour now. You're on the fucking phone with talking bologna sandwiches, Scott Spears for a half hour at a time. We're raising your oldest.
She still doesn't know that part. Okay. And this was pandemic time. Who the fuck was doing anything back then?
Yeah, you had more time.
I couldn't get away with it now. I don't have time now. So Scott was always willing to have the conversation. So at least the fact that he has the back and forth, and you could say it's a ridiculous argument. However, I will say where I do see where he's coming from and not asking the question is if he actually does follow through.
I'm gonna remind Danny where he left off.
Yeah, it'll be
Come back.
No way Cosby ever goes down the line. He's doing this just with a hint that he may get Cosby back on the line someday down the line. That's all it is. It's a plus 1,000 bet that he's throwing down a couple dollars on.
Because I think I kind of have it, because there is at one point within, as they're talking on air, you get a little like cocky braggy Scott.
Wow. And I think, again, why do you think that the newspapers across the country, including the USA Today, covered it if it wasn't news?
Of course, it's
if it was
the news is
hilarious.
The news,
the USA Today.
Questions. The news isn't anything you did, Scott. It's what you didn't do.
But that I think the headline says Cosby gives first post-prison interview or something to that effect.
Well, correct, but do you?
I don't think it said, didn't ask the question.
Well, okay, but within the stories they do, and I read those. I'm sure you did too. So if we had on, I don't know, let's say Kevin Spacey came on my show, okay? Like, I could certainly have him on and tell him how much I liked House of Cards and The Usual Suspects and Seven. And then if I didn't ask him questions about his situation, would it get press? Sure, it would. But I would be embarrassed about it. I wouldn't think I did a good job.
Well, again, I think that journalism is lost in our country right now. I think we know how every journalist...
And Scott's going to save it. And Scott's going to save it.
All the time.
But you know,
and that's why certain political groups will not go on stations. And I think that you do not want a judgmental journalist. If you knew how I felt about Bill Cosby before I interviewed him, if you knew how I felt about murderers, how many people have interviewed Charles Manson?
Okay, but why did you? Okay,
that is such a.
But they asked Charles Manson. They fucking asked Charles Manson about his murders. They don't interview him about how great his rock song was with Brian Wilson in 1962.
How mad?
What are we doing?
Didn't get that recording label.
Yeah. Go ahead, Danny. Go ahead.
It's true, but it's funny. You know what, though? But at least Scott Spears, he's the opposite of what we've seen this week from the Washington Post reporter.
Agreed.
And what's his face, the pizza asshole.
Portnoy.
I mean, he's going into this with no bias whatsoever. Dave Portnoy would love to talk to Scott Spears, I'm sure.
Yeah, true. True.
You called him an educator, a teacher, a comedian, the funniest comedian of all. Well, I mean, gone. You know that, right? Why are they gone?
I believe he does. God love him.
Even better.
Why are they gone, Scott? Why are they gone?
Well, are they gone though?
I don't think his degree that he did earn is gone.
Well, okay, but some of the doctorates he got.
Honorary? Yeah, correct. Some of the honorary are gone, but the honorary.
Why are they gone, Scott? What happened?
He was accused of rape and in prison.
He went to jail. He went to jail for it. The only time I ever listened to it was, like I said, it was like I was in a time warp.
We're going around in a circle here. I guess what the question you're saying is, why did I not pressure?
And you said because of legal reasons, right?
Crimes that he's been accused of,
right?
Huh?
Because of some legal reasons.
And I think I have said to the newspapers and to you that I knew he was not going to talk about those. Absolutely knew it. He's involved in civil trials. I could have said, no, Bill Cosby, don't come on the show. I know you can't talk about that. Stay home. But you know what? He came on. I never asked him about the Olympics. That's misstated. He started talking about it. That was a question of mine.
Yeah.
What a hill to die on, Scott.
Yeah.
It wasn't him that brought up the Olympics.
Yeah, I love it.
But it's the whole episode is just.
Yes, I agree. This is a good re-listen. This is a good one, Andrew. Good job.
I love it.
Yep. All right. I think we're coming up on it. Is there any last thoughts that you guys have on it? Andrew, I know it's late tonight. You got to go in early. I still haven't had dinner when I got out of work. So, big boy's hungry. Obviously, Sneaker's going to make a joke about that. No salad, Sneaker. No salads. No salads here tonight.
No, it's great episode.
I'm still recovering. Thanks for asking. I just climbed up from my deathbed for this.
Yeah. R.I.P. Danny.
I know. And I was going to say also, eat your heart out, Kathy, wherever my COVID test is. I'm bringing it in tomorrow for Dave too. I'm fine. I didn't catch anything down in Mexico. It was nice.
But yeah, so do you guys have any final thoughts on this? Danny, Andrew, I'm going to let you guys close it out.
And I think Danny will agree that a part 2 has got to be had just because of, I think how long, like the after effects of even just from the prank phone calls, the calling, we were begging for him to come to the Wilbur to try to get Scott to go to the Wilbur. So
this is like a behind the scenes prank group. You guys were all going in. Okay. Got it.
I'm working in one of my old jobs at the time. Yeah. So like I'm recording at work. I'm screen recording everything. I'm cracking up on the inside. I'm trying to not make a fool of myself at my desk. So it's always been something like around this world that I've always been invested in. And just the one things that happen on the air hilarious, and nothing tops what Kirk and Mike and everything's going on in that scenario. But even
then
the behind the scenes just adds it that much more, and then it gets played on the air again, which we heard for a few couple weeks, and then it came to the point now where he's like, "Oh, we love these pinheads."
Pinheads, I love that. All right, Danny, anything from you here to close?
And this was active. That little exclusive. That little caller group that Gus was talking about was really that was boiling pretty good for those couple weeks. Pretty much everybody was participating. There was a lot going on there. We can get into that more in part 2, but to back up what Andrew says, to give you an idea here, and a voicemail that we'll play when we do a part 2 is one. It was a return phone call from the Marion, Ohio City Hall that I got after I called requesting that a popcorn statue of Scott Spears be built for the Popcorn Festival in September. That was September 7th, 2021. This episode that as I mentioned, was August 18th. So weeks later, the Scott Spears.
You guys are still going.
On. So
you guys are still going. Yeah.
This was actually, and that's what big winners we are here. In the little caller club. So that was great. I just wanted to close out, Dave, with a couple of little, just some little tidbits here, completely outside of the Scott Spears thing. I did find it interesting. There was a lot of talk about Amazon Music being a sponsor and what music could be played, and there was a little back and forth there during the Amazon Music read that was pretty funny.
Good one, Danny. Good one.
Yeah, I recommend people going back to that. That was pretty good.
So hold on,
and then also there was some trivia.
Danny, can I piggyback off
sure.
that?
Go ahead.
There's a great line where Kirk goes, "Dave, can you find out if we can we play music? Will you be able to answer that?" And Dave literally goes, I don't know if we'll ever be able to answer that. Like, it just made me laugh. It's like right there, you see Dave's like, I'm not going to look into it. Like, I'm just not going to look into it. I'm just, not going to look into it. So that's what you're talking about, Danny. Yeah, that was that little exchange. That was very funny, Danny. Good job.
Hey, Kirk, here's a screen the size of a dinner plate. Go fuck yourself. Yeah, that's all we're going to use here.
Yeah, that's all we're going to use here. All right, go ahead. Continue, Danny. Sorry.
That was good. When you go back and do the re-listen, check that out. There was also some trivia drama, if you notice. So here it is 2 years later, and you've got Rico already calling Kirk Cap, Gay Pat providing some bulletin board material for the opposition. So some back and forth there. They actually Kirk actually called in live to walk the line. So it came up the other day that Kirk said, have we ever done a simulcast with Barstool Radio? It happened that day on this episode as well, where he called in and he's talking to Rico and Marty on Walk the Line live. Marty's talking about shitting his pants after eating like 20 pounds of Taco Bell or whatever. First mention of Ben Mintz. Mintz, the caller, calls in and they say, who the fuck is Ben Mintz?
So 2 simulcasts, though, because they simulcasted with Scott Spears as well, too.
No, go ahead.
So we had 2 simulcasts this episode then. Good call, Danny. Good job. Yep. Continue, Danny. I'm sorry. I just had to point that out. Yep. Ben Mintz, yep.
And no, that's all right. It's all good. There was first mention of Ben Mintz, and then you've got the of course our callers that I think they've kind of worn out their welcome. You have to get really sneaky to get in there. Something like when D's nuts are in your mouth, things like that. But this was the Mind Goblins call. And actually, you didn't cue this up, Andrew, did you? I meant to ask you on this one.
I wish I did. It's
did you have a chance?
One of my favorite.
We might have to add this in. Maybe we'll add it in at the end if we
Part
can.
2.
That's a good way to end it. No, it's okay. I think it's a good way. I'll pull and cut it for you guys. It takes 2 seconds. Right. It is one of the best calls into the shows. And I think even now, as I'm doing this top 50 list with Andy and Tim, you start thinking back all these, like someone even said it with Blind Mike's daddy. His was always one of the best phone calls to come in.
Me. I said it.
I was like, I've been listening to so much, it all gets blurred in. But you're right, because my favorite Blind Mike Daddy thing was Pastor Jose. He had that thing going for like a year and a half before just dropping it out of the blue.
Love it.
I almost drove off the road when he did the drop.
Yeah, my favorite was the Lamley when he called as the Mariah Carey, and then he turns it to Blind Mike Daddy. That's like an all-time, like I'll never forget where I was when that happened. I swear to God. So that's going to be one of the episodes that, like, if you gave me Daver's top 5 episodes, it's that one. I feel bad for Blind Mike's daddy. He called in during my episode yesterday. Mike and Kirk recognized him as Joanne's pussy. So he had to give that up. He said, R.I.P. Joanne's.
Yeah.
He tweeted that out.
They killed him.
Buddy. Yeah, Buddy.
We got to have him on here. Today. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, Buddy shit on him today on Twitter too. He's like, "What happened to Blind Mike's daddy? Look how he's fallen." It's not good for Blind Mike's daddy right now. I need him to come up with a new character.
Oh
where
man,
they don't recognize his
I miss
voice.
Kirk. I miss Kirkinoff too.
Yeah,
Andrew, I liked it. I liked your news segment. I liked you on Kirkinoff. That was a great show. I really miss it.
yeah.
I had to pull off all the old news reporting shtick out of me. That great mentor of mine, Bill Haberman.
Yeah, that's right. Mentor Bill Haberman. Yeah. All right, boys. Anything else from this episode, or we all good?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks you guys so much for having me on tonight. This was
Andrew, this was a good episode. Thank you for having us. This is a great call. We'll definitely do a part 2. That's a great call. You guys can play all those phone calls that you guys have, all like the backstories, because honestly, it would be something where like I really don't know any of this, so I think me and the audience would be learning a lot of stuff that you guys did behind the scenes. So I think that would be an interesting episode. And Andrew, man, good luck tomorrow. This could be your last shot before Sacco. Go in and give it your best shot, dude.
I am excited. I'm having fun. I'm prepared for whatever gets thrown my way because I know there's a lot to talk about. I'm sure.
All right, well,
give him hell, Andrew. You're a married man now, so you can always use the ring.
Oh
yeah, that's right.
Who says I won't?
All right, boys.
Who says I wasn't trying to get that ring
good luck, buddy.
put on my finger with some?
There you go.
It's just saying.
All right, boys. Have a great night, Andrew. Good luck, Tim. I'll see you soon, buddy.
Later, guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye.